Hello, hello, and welcome back to another installment of My Therapist Made Me Do This podcast with Mario and friends. I am, of course, Mario. Now, um, I feel like I say this a lot, but it's the truth. Um, been a little busy, like I know, like for real, for real. So last week, I was trying to get this podcast in before I left to go to Las Vegas. So, if you don't know, I coach high school basketball, and we got invited to this tournament called the Border League, and it's like all these like the top high school teams from like the neighboring states that border Arizona. So man, did really well. This seems to start. This is starting to become a trend for us. Apparently, we played really, really well, and we get to the championship game, and yeah, we smoke it. So I don't understand. Like we working on it, nonetheless. But had them beat like 22-6. Like when the thing first started, the game first started in the championship game. But shout out to those guys, Oak Hill High School. Appreciate y'all for the good comp. It only helps us get better. So nonetheless, so I was away doing the things, but I am back now. And in true Mario fashion, every time I want to do a podcast, there's something that happens that kind of gives me a reminder to either do one or not do one. And I'm glad I didn't do it because something happens. But first, I want to I want to throw this little inject, as we call it at work, but I want to throw this in here real quick. We're going to kind of go off the script for a second. So I keep I talked about this a while ago, and I was trying to think of what I wanted to call this. When I see little things on the internet, I just want to come, and I should have did a short for it. But I just want to kind of share my thoughts, and it's like Mario's little useless. Maybe I'll call it that. Mario's little useless 2 cents. But anyway, I thought this was really important to share because it was a great lesson in Friends, right? And I'll elaborate a little more on it after you listen to it. Now, hopefully, if you are listening to this, you're able to hear this because I practiced this like 17 times. So I'm hoping that I got it right. Now, scenario. The Breakfast Club is a urban radio show. They interview anybody from politicians, musicians, actors, actresses, all those things, right? So recently, there was a rapper from Bankheads, where I'm from Atlanta, the west side of Atlanta, named Young Dro. Now, Young Dro, cold rapper, probably the best one in Grand Hustle, if you ask me, personal opinion. Um, but he had been on and off for a while as far as making music, and it comes to find out that he was battling substance abuse issues. So, in the midst of his absence, he has been sober, I think, for like 2 or 3 years now, and they brought up the story, or they asked him about it on the show, and he had rapper Ti was there, and like it was like his manager, and like there was this comedian there. It was one of their friends hangs around, right? So as he's sharing this story, like the comedian in the background is like laughing, right? And so I watched it. So at first I thought it was funny. Actually, everybody in the room thought it was funny. But then like I was like, wait a minute, this ain't funny. Like this man is literally sharing very intricate, intimate moments of his life about himself and his daughter. And you'll hear him talk about his daughter when I play this. And the guy in the background was just laughing. And in true Mario fashion, I called a great epiphany. So I'm gonna let y'all listen to this first. Definitely, when you see this or you hear this, chime in, tell me what you think. I would love to have a conversation about this if it warrants it on the back end. Now, let's see if I can do this without screwing it up. All right.
He's telling the truth. Like, nah, but it was more than that. It was actually I overdosed. You feel what I'm saying? And I used this platform with the thank God to.
Man, what's wrong with you, man?
That's funny.
What's wrong with you? He laughing in the background.
Man, bro,
That's your brother, right? That's your brother.
crazy, man.
He's a mechanic.
K-Dub.
He's a mechanic. The mechanics always laughing.
K-Dub is a dastardly individual, man.
So go ahead.
Nah,
So
but-
you
so-
almost overdosed.
Yo, I did.
No.
Know what I mean? And all of these things happened. The overdose. My daughter was on drugs, and career wise, I wasn't where I wanted to be.
What is this? What's up with your man?
Hey, you finna get slapped, man. I mean, we cool, but I slapped the shit out you by laughing.
Oh man.
I'm just telling you, we
Hey, you ain't
cool.
gonna slap me now.
Now, what you want to do?
Hey, you ain't gonna slap me.
What you want to do?
You gonna hurt yourself?
Yeah.
Don't let him take you out of your
Sober Joe, come on,
No,
man.
I can do
Yeah, I'm
what
here for Bankhead though.
I can do
Like,
what I want to do.
Hey, listen.
Hey, man, you
Hey, listen. Hey, both of y'all, all y'all, everybody came in this motherfucker with me.
I ain't gonna go with you.
Hey, look. Everybody came in the motherfucker with me. Hey, look, everybody came in the motherfucker with me. Hey, look, remember who you came in and remember what we doing here, man. Come on, man. Let's get this shit together, bro. All right?
All right. Now, Mario has some thoughts. So my useless 2 cents. Now, I think sometimes, and I'm trying to think if I ever fell victim to this, but I probably have. I think sometimes we as humans forget how difficult it is to truly be vulnerable with people. And sometimes the most difficult people to be vulnerable with are the people that are closest to you. Um, One of the things that I've noticed, social media is one of my favorite things that I've noticed. And I do this little social experiment every now and then. And I normally like reach out to somebody I'm cool with and kind of point it out to them. Um, but I always tell people, pay attention to who is there to celebrate you um, when you win, if you need encouragement. But when there comes a time that you may be, I don't want to call it vulnerable, but when you're just having a weak moment, so to speak, pay attention to those people that are quick to laugh at you. The people who you don't really talk to every day, they just pop up out of nowhere, and they're quick to point out your flaws, or they're quick to point out something that you did wrong. But then, like the next day, like they're gone. Like you don't hear from them ever again. One of one of the things that frustrates me the most about people, I hear a lot of people recently talking about like haters, and like for some reason people don't think that having haters is a real thing. And I always find that funny because I feel like if you they always say like if you're not working hard enough if you don't have haters. And I used to think that was such a stupid line until I actually started really working hard and I started developing legitimate haters, like people who, not just me just assuming this, but people who I seen, heard, like really just like expect and hope for my downfall and like shared it with other people. But I say all that to say this, man. This is why it's so important to me to keep your circle small. Now, I'm not saying, that you don't need anybody and nobody needs anybody, but I do feel like everybody needs the right circle of friends. Now, the interesting part about this is that in that sometimes the people who think that they're in your circle aren't in your circle. They're not really in that close knit kind of group of people that you have that celebrate, share, like get real vulnerable for. And a lot of people have a hard time dealing with that. So you'll hear people tell you, hey, find a friend, blah blah blah. But like people are okay with that as long as as long as it includes them. When it doesn't include them, then that's when there's an issue. And that's why I always tell people, man, like I want you to be able to be cool and close with somebody who's gonna support you, even if it's not me. And I make it a point to say that all the time because I may not be the person that you feel uh the closest to like talk to, be vulnerable. that's okay. And like, I don't say I don't care, but legitimately, just find somebody that you can be vulnerable with. This man was talking about how his daughter was like a substance abuser, and it was because of things that she saw her dad do. And in the midst of being surrounded by friends, the first thing that man thought to do was start laughing. Now, when you look back into the story, like they interviewed the guy who was laughing, and he said that he was laughing because they were talking about like code switching. Did an episode on it, but you know how his voice changed when he was talking about something else, and he said as a comedian, they keep me around to kind of liven up the thing, and I thought it was my room. Like in the midst of this man being vulnerable, he thought it was his room. This was his opportunity to showcase and be funny. So this is why I love situations like this, because it allows you to really see who your friends really are. That's why I say, like, man, you gotta be careful who you call your friends. Because to me, like, you don't know what a true friend is unless you've been through some shit. Because you see how people really are when they really go through things. Like it's just true story. I've been cool with people. Hey, we've done some stuff we ain't got no business doing, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go down with the ship because I ain't. Mario don't snitch on Mario. Just to watch the other person just start singing like a bird, like it's crazy. But you learn a lot about people based on the pressure. Oh my god, situations that they're put in. So say that just be mindful of things like that, man. When you're at your weakest, I should say weakest, but when you're at your most vulnerable point, man, pay attention to the people around you. I always say, check the pedigree of the people around you. Hell, I'll even go a little further. Every now and then, piss your friend off. Like, piss people you call your friend off. And then you really get to see how they really feel about you. Because all the things they've been harboring for some reason tends to come out. But then it allows you to see who they really are. And then from then on, you just move accordingly. Mario's useless 2 cents. Just wanted to throw some light in there. Now, tonight, like I said, we're going to have a conversation about EMDR. Now, EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Now, this is currently a form of therapy that I am going through. So I wanted to share it, and I wanted to share it for a couple of reasons. Actually, my wife is going through it as well, but she's on. Oh, say hey, babe. She's over here. What are you doing? She's over here crocheting. So never mind. Maybe we'll get her on another time, and we'll let her share like her experience. Now, this is another form of therapy that I'm going through, and it's different from uh, talk therapy, where you sit down and you just, what's wrong? How does that make you feel? Like it's very different from that. So it uses like bilateral stimulation, where there be sounds, eye movements, vibrations, things like that. And I'll explain in a second. Now, this was started in. I'm sending this to my therapist Jessica, so I hope I don't screw this up because she definitely gonna tell me if I did. But this was started doing my research by a Francine Shapiro, right? So apparently, this young lady, this psychologist, was walking through the woods, or walking through the woods. She was just walking, and this random traumatic thought like came up in her head, or she was thinking about something that brought back like a traumatic feeling for her. So she stopped and she noticed that, like, as she was thinking about it, like her eyes were moving back and forth, and when she opened her eyes, she closed them again. And she had like this weird epiphany that the more she started breaking down, like what the experience she was thinking about was, like it was easier to process it, right? So I guess in the like Mario version, the Mario not nerd version of all this, is the whole purpose of this type of therapy is to, instead of you just sitting down talking about something traumatic that has happened to you, like you almost break it down piece by piece. So I liken it to, I was telling my last session I had, I was like, it's like if you go on Netflix, right? And let's say there's a scene on Netflix that you don't like. And you know how you can kind of take the remote control and kind of scroll left or right, and it takes those little squares and it moves them, and each square has a little scene. That's the best way I can explain it. So we go, whatever traumatic experience you're going through, and you start with the first scene, and you work your way through it. Now, originally, this was used for people who had PTSD, and it has expanded to people who have anxiety, depression, traumatic experiences, um, difficulty getting over loved ones, like was affecting like your, you know what I'm saying, your day to day, like mojo. You're just not yourself, right? So I wanted to share like what my experience was, and hopefully like it'll, help somebody else. Like if you're going through therapy or you're getting ready to start therapy, maybe this is something you can look into to kind of take whatever healing you need to go through to the next level. Now, there's like a bunch of different phases to it. So there's obviously like history taking, where it's like a brief overview. Now, mind you, I want you guys to know that it's never like the first session is never just jump into everything, right? You never just jump into it. It's very much kind of a getting to know you kind of thing. Now, if this is something that you're going through with a different therapist, man, I talked about this a long time ago. Remember, therapy's like dating. So you have to find the right fit for you. Now, everybody isn't licensed in this, which is why my previous therapist, like she passed me on to somebody else because she was going through it, the certification. So it's not something that everybody just wakes up and started doing. Like there's a certification process, right? So there's history taking, there's preparation, then there's the assessment, then there's desensitization, then there's installation, there's body scanning, closure, and reevaluation. Now, if I had to guess, I would say I'm probably at the assessment desensitization phase of all this. Now, I'll be honest with you, the first time I went to this, I started this therapy, cried like a baby. And it was literally just the history taking part of it. But I had realized that it had been a long time since I started talking about the things that triggered me, right? Or just like telling the whole story like in its entirety. And like I said, I can tell people if you walked up to me right now and say, "Hey Mario, what you going to mental health for?" I'll tell you. Like I don't have no problem telling you. Um, but I conveniently leave pieces out of the puzzle because I know if I start to putting them all together, then I'll just start going through these a whole like myriad of emotions, and I just don't. You just can't do that everywhere you go these days. So I don't have a problem telling the story, but I realized after the first session it had been a while since I really sat down and just had a conversation. And the first time I did it in a while, like it emotionally drained me so bad that I was depressed for like a week. Like I legitimately like I felt completely worthless. Like I was like, man, I just felt flat. Like it was weird, man. I had never been in a funk like that, like ever in a long time, right? So I think I skipped the next session. This is Mario being honest. I skipped the next session because I really hated how it made me feel. And I was like, man, if this is like what this is, I want no part of this because I don't want to walk out of this room feeling like that every single day, right? So I ended up going back and I told the lady, she's super sweet. And I was like, listen, I really don't want to be here because I don't like what this is making me do. I don't like how this is making me feel. Little did I know that was kind of part of the whole thing. I just kind of jumped from like history taking to like desensitization like real fast, right? So as we're working through it now, like I said, there's different ways that you can do it. There's a audio version where I think they do like sounds and they kind of go from left to right in your ear. And then like for me, I use like it's like these little, I can't describe them. We call them buzzies, but they're like these things you put in your left and your right hand. And they put a timer in your hand and they start buzzing from left to right to kind of get that bilateral eye movement. Now I'm trying to think, I think it's the butterfly effect. Now, if you ever watched the Butterfly Effect, great movie by the way. Like if you haven't watched it, but if you remember before he started like time traveling, I forgot what it was. Whenever he started like going back in time, like the first thing that would move was his eyes. Like his eyes would start moving real quick left and right, and obviously the screen would start shaking. It would do the things right. So essentially, like what I have learned is that even when you're in your deepest levels of sleep, like they said, if you ever like sit and watch somebody sleep, like you will notice, like when they're starting to hit their deepest levels of sleep, you'll see their eyes kind of moving left to right, and that is them potentially processing like short term memories and starting to slowly create them into long term memories. So the whole point of these buzzies is to kind of reenact that same feeling. So entirely long story short, because I ain't gonna be here very long. But when we first got into the nitty gritty of it, which was the last session, she told me to like picture something. It was like a baseline. So like picture a place that makes you happy. So first I talked about like my grandma, right? So my grandma, God rest her soul, like when I grew up living with her, I had a chair, and under the chair, well, dining room table, and under the dining room table was like my safe space, and it didn't matter what was going on during the day. I could be coming home from baseball practice, school, or whatever. My grandma would be in this one chair watching Matlock or Days of Our Lives. I'll never forget it. And then I would come in and I would like literally crawl under the table and I would sit there and I would just divulge every single important piece of my little Mario life to my grandma. And it was where me and her like had like, just like genuine like grandma grandson conversations, right? Like life decisions were made under grandma's dining room table. To the fact that even before she died, like whenever I would have conversations with her, now obviously I'm a little bigger now, but even when I had conversations with her, like while she was alive, like I would always end up at her dining room table and I would just sit and like talk to her because it reminded me so much of being in my like safe space. So what I quickly realized was this is a terrible safe space because it took me back to memories of my grandmother, and I'm still not emotionally over the fact that my grandmother passed away. Mainly because I don't know why. I don't think I ever will. Like I always tell people who lose like grandparents. I can't speak for parents, but I always tell people when you lose a grandparent, man, you just if you were close to them, man, that's just a hurt you just don't forget. And I was super close, like to my grandma. Well, like I was her favorite grandchild. I think it goes without saying that I was the favorite grandchild. But no, like it left such a huge void that even when I went to go, Jess and I went back to Georgia for something. I forgot what we was going back for. Um, but literally, I went and found her gravesite, and literally, man, it felt like eternity. But like I knew it wasn't that long. But like literally, I just stood over her grave and just cried. Like I mean, I couldn't stop crying. And so they were like, "That's a bad memory, like that's a bad one because it takes you back to someone that you lost, and it just totally like it throws everything off." So my next thought was when I was deployed in like this little counter drug unit, right? And like it was like on this little Caribbean island. It was like Miami Vice meets the United States Air Force. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. Um, so there was this beach that I would go to, and only when I was on breaks, and there was like this one specific chair that I would always sit at, and if you sit on it and you look out in the ocean, I mean, it was like literally something you saw on a postcard. I mean, like clear water, waves going perfectly, birds flying over, palm trees. The sun wasn't beaming directly on you; it was kind of going between these trees. But like that was literally whenever I was like thinking about my family or like ready to go home or just had a long day, I would go there and just like that was my place of like zen, right? So that was my happy space. So that was my baseline. So whenever something happened, as we go further on in therapy, whenever something happened, I would have to go back to that space. Now, initially, I'm telling you, I thought this was the dumbest shit ever. And I'm not even gonna lie to you. In some parts of it, I kind of still do. Like I'm not sure if I'm going crazy or not. I might be. I don't know. We gonna find out. But I very vividly remember um what I would like to call like my first breakthrough. And it was going back to that Netflix scene. So the first like session where we kind of really got into it, um, she asked me to just tell me what happened at the start of the situation. And I took her back to I was in this tent. One of the girls that works with me came in and said, "Hey, something's going on outside." So I walked outside the door. I looked up in the sky, and I wish I was an artist. I wish I was like the Black Bob Ross because I could draw this so vividly right now. But like, just imagine looking up in the sky and like one side of the sky is like this beautiful, like sky blue. I mean, just clouds, just like perfect. If I was a pilot, it would be a perfect day for flying. On the left side was this black smoke, and it was like she was like, "Okay, so hold it and just freeze." And I literally she started the little buzzies and I was kind of confused. I was like, what the hell's going on? But she was like, just think about that picture. Like just think about don't think about what happened after that. Don't think about what happened before that. Like think about the start of this situation. So I'm sitting there going through it and the things are going through. And the first couple rounds, I'm like, this shit is stupid. Do you hear me? Like stupid. So the more I kind of really got into it, I started going through like these I love the word myriad, these myriad of emotions. And like the first one, like my palms started getting sweaty. And I was just kind of rubbing my hands like against my pants. I'm like, man, like it was taking me back there. And I wasn't sure if I was like emotionally about to have a breakdown or if I was, I don't know. So then I would stop. She would stop me after a little certain amount of time and she was like, how do you feel? And I was like, my palms are sweating. She was like, hold it. Like hold that emotion. And then she would start the buzzes again. I would go back to this space. And when I tell you I went through like anxiety, nervousness, I was angry as hell. I started crying. Like I went through pretty much honestly probably every emotion I've ever had uh thinking back to that situation. And we just kept doing this over and over and over. And this is when I learned, and actually, Jessica, my therapist, she talked about this before about doing trauma yoga because she was telling me this a long time ago. And she was like, your body, so like aches and pains that you have, a lot of times, I mean, it could be because you're out of shape, but it's normally because your body like harbors trauma, like your body absorbs traumatic experiences and it affects you in the form of pain. And I, as crazy as I thought that sounded, I have like chronic back pain, like my knees, I'm literally ready to cut them off right now. Like everything hurts. Now I've got a lot better. Like, but if I used to get out of bed and like everything's popping, I walk like Frankenstein for a couple of seconds before I got my life together. But as I'm channeling all these emotions, I start feeling this pain in my right shoulder. And I mean, just like a throbbing, like somebody had walked up to me and just like full Mike Tyson punch out, haymaker me in the arm, like just in the arm. And then it radiated to my chest when my chest started feeling heavy. And then it went back to my arms. Then it radiated down to my hands to the point where my hands were like cramped, like they were like in a almost in a C shape and I'm trying to like open my hands up, but I can't open my hands up. And the more I kept thinking about it, the more I kept going through the emotions. And the longer we did this, that picture that I saw in the sky started getting cloudy and it started getting cloudier and cloudier and cloudier to the point where it totally disappeared. Like it would when I closed my eyes and tried to think about it, it would be like this dark circle that started off really big and then it just kind of shrunk to something real small. And she kept asking me like, how do I feel? And I'm like, man, I don't know, but I do know the thought of the emotions I had thinking about that picture aren't there anymore. Like I just kind of made peace with it. It was almost like acceptance. And that's when it hit me. I was like, oh my God, this is the whole point of this. So I think the hardest part so far has been not finding a reason to like do this, but just like I've only because I take the time to really only channel it while I'm there, it's hard to really tell that shit really works like when I'm not at work. Or when I'm not in her office. So again, like going back to things like EMDR or like counseling or trauma counseling or whatever you're going through, like creating that safe space is so important. And it's not just a it's kind of bigger than the therapist, to be honest with you. Like it's one of those things where like you just walk in and you just feel completely vulnerable, like free of judgment, free of ridicule. You just feel like whatever I say or whatever I do in here, I can do it and do it unfiltered and be perfectly fine. And sometimes the space is more important than the person because obviously just think about it, the more comfortable you are, the more vulnerable you are, the more, you go to a friend's house, you know them, you more, kick your feet up, you can chill, talk more. But when you go to somebody's house that you don't really know, you're a little more reserved. You kind of play the room and see how things go. So the other day, I was coming from my son's football game. They had got destroyed, and so we're driving back. It was like an hour drive, and I think my son was kind of, my daughter was asleep, Maya was asleep. I think Miles might have been on his phone and he was sleeping, and Jessica was kind of dozing like in and out. Um, so we're driving, and I see in the on the highway like this like faint cloud of like smoke in the air, right? Like something's burning. And so I see it and I'm like, oh shit. So I immediately try to tell myself, like, okay, it's not that big deal, not that big a deal. Something's burning. It's okay. So I'm trying to speed up. Like so I'm trying to speed up in the car. But I don't know, I felt kind of bad. I don't think I was driving fast, but I probably was driving pretty fast because I was trying to hurry up and just speed by wherever the thing was so I didn't have to see it anymore. So the closer I get, you go up on the ramp and the ramp turns left. So I'm like, oh cool. So we get up, I speed up on the ramp, start to curve around to the left, and then I realized that the smoke is right in front of me. Like it is in my direct line of sight. Now, normally I could pull a little visor down. I just kind of focus on the street and the cars around me, and I don't look at nothing else. I'm cool. But like the way this angle was, I couldn't look at nothing else. Like it was, hello, this is the smoke. So my palms started getting sweaty. I started getting real hot, so I turned the air up a little bit, and I think like I was first I was kind of tapping my leg, then I was like tapping back and forth, and then that's when it hit me like, oh my god, like this really is a thing, because I'm like, man, like I can feel myself getting worked up to the point where I was like, okay, so I might have to pull over this car because I'm about to have this anxiety attack, and I think like Jess might have saw me like tapping on the steering wheel. So I was tapping on the steering wheel, trying to recreate like that moment when I was in therapy, and I just started taking deep breaths, like in like just trying to breathe and not like just like panic or nothing like that. 'Cause obviously, I got my whole family in the car, and I'm not trying to wreck this car. Oh, some goddamn black smoke that has nothing to do with me. So as we're driving, I think Jess asked me. So I think she must have caught on. I don't know. Babe, can you hear me? Did you kind of catch on to what was going on? Yeah, okay. So she did. I don't know if y'all can hear, but like she caught on to what was going on, and she asked me. She was like, "Do you want me to drive the rest of the way?" And I was like, "No, I think I'm okay." And in my mind, I probably should have let her drive the rest of the way, but I don't know, just prideful man shit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, "No, I'm okay." Because in my mind, I'm like, "Man, I really have to stop running from this." Like I really like at some point, and like I tell them all the time, like I tell my therapist all the time, like I just want to be normal. Like I want to go back to do the things that I enjoy. I love fireworks. I love blowing shit up. You know what I'm saying? But like now I can't even like 4th of July, like New Year's, like I want no parts of it. And it's crazy because I ain't never been like that. Like I'm the one that goes to buy all the fireworks, and my wife is looking at me like I'm goddamn crazy. But like I can't do it. Like I legitimately can't do it anymore. And like, and so I just tell people like, man, like I don't care about VA disability, none of that bullshit, man. I just legitimately want to be normal. I don't like to live my life in fear. I'm not a very fearful person. Well, not anymore, not as much as I used to be. But man, I just want to be normal. So I'm kind of as I'm driving, I notice the more I'm breathing, I'm trying to controlling my thoughts. I'm thinking about that little beach, and I'm like, man, holy shit, like this is the work, and like legitimately, like I felt like my blood pressure come down a little bit, like I was cool. I didn't feel as warm anymore, so I turned the air down. I wasn't getting as worked up. My heart rate kind of calmed down, and I was good. And it was at that moment that I realized, and and this is no knock on anything I've done before, but I was like, man, like maybe this shit really is working now. You know what I'm saying? Like I come on here all the time and I talk about like the importance of like going to, seek therapy and find help and all those things. And man, I just like, man, like this is the first time I really, really was like, oh my God, like this is probably the fastest turning burn on something that I went through that I feel like is really doing it for me. And I say all that to say this. I'm about to bring it home. I just wanted to share my experience with y'all. But man, I was having this conversation with somebody. I won't say his name, but I was listening to something he was saying, and I couldn't help but chime in because he was just it was like I don't want to call them a series of unfortunate events, I know he's gonna hear this. And this, I just so you know, bro. This is what I wanted to say to you, so I'm just gonna say it because I ain't gonna type all that shit out. But he was going through what was like a series of unfortunate events, but it's what we like to call over here life. And there was this situation, this job that he really wanted to get, and it didn't work out for him. He did everything he was supposed to do, but it didn't end up working out. And he pulled back out of it because of something that happened in his past. And it was like thinking about his mom, and like, man, like just from an emotional standpoint, like I really just resonated with all the things he was saying. And I tried to give him some encouraging words, and just telling him like, hey, it's super cliche, but like everything really does happen for a reason. And you know a lot of times, I don't want to say we block our own blessings, but a lot of times, man, like our breakthrough is literally right on the other side of us, like finding closure to things. And I'm not saying this like I just haven't, because there are literally some things that I have uh, was or am dealing with, like in my childhood, that I was going to therapy for, that I ain't bring closure to yet. And it's almost like I kind of just put a stop sign on it. I was like, man, I just gotta worry about something else. Like something else like has to occupy my time. And like I know like eventually I'm gonna have to like tackle this, because like whatever my true breakthrough is literally on the other side of me just like bringing closure, or just coming to like some kind of like middle ground, or just like peace with like all the stuff that is going on. And this is why I encourage people to go to therapy for things like this, because I honestly didn't realize there were so many other avenues like this. Now, Jess, well, I could tell a little bit of her business. Like, she was actually the first person uh in the house. Like, she was going to mental health for some things, and unfortunately, they wouldn't let her see the same person I saw because it's a conflict of interest. But like, she actually started EMD therapy first, and it was kind of interesting to me when she was kind of explaining it initially, and I was like, man, like this shit kind of sounds like hypnosis. Like it sounds like something. It sounds like something really crazy, but I was so caught off by, like, I always thought that traditional therapy was sit down on the couch, you talk about your problems, you cry, you laugh, you get angry, you do all the things. But like, there's so many other options than talk therapy is what they call it. They help you like um tackle everyday stress, process trauma, PTSD, like all of those kind of things, man. And it truly blew my mind that there were so many things that you can do to just help you become a better person. And at the end of the day, man, the reason why I do this podcast, and I tell people this all the time. I'm not a therapist. I don't claim to be a therapist. Apparently, I give really good advice. I just don't follow my own. Full disclosure, I don't, but I give really good advice to other people. But man, like this is all to like show people, and like I've never had a problem being vulnerable. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just like I always feel like, man, like something in my life could be a blessing to somebody else. Like I think that's why I'm so enthralled with like coaching kids, because I love sharing my stories with them. I love telling them all the stupid shit I did and how they can like avoid it, right? So if there's an opportunity for me to be vulnerable with somebody and kind of tell them what I'm going through, you never know um the people that you talk to, the conversations you have, the people that you interact with, man, you just never know like what those people are going through, and they could be waiting on somebody like you to just put something in their ear, and it just changed their whole mindset. So that's honestly the reason why I do this. Like, not to just share out my personal business, but man, like this is such an interesting journey, man. Like I said, every now and then I go back and listen to like the beginning of my podcast. I listen towards the middle, and I catch like some of my deployment ones. And I listen to it now, and like, man, like sometimes I really feel like I'm four different versions of myself when I listen to it. But I can there's only a few people that I've ever really talked to about this that can tell like one of one of them. She always Tammy, she always tell me like she can catch different tones and inflections in my voice, and she can tell me when I'm holding back or something's wrong, or like, you know what I'm saying, like you can hear, I guess you can feel like different emotional pieces of me depending on what I'm talking about. And I never really caught that until I started back listening to other podcasts that I had. I'm like, damn, like I remember what I was going through at the time, what was on my brain, and that just really wasn't a fun time in life. Oh no, that was pretty cool. I remember when that happened. So again, if it's anything I can do to like help people, you know, be better versions of themselves, man, so be it, man. I'm still working on getting the young lady that did the couples therapy on. I sent her an email the other day because I definitely forgot to email her back the first time. But I sent her an email, and I'm really hoping that she'll have time out of her busy day to just talk about couples therapy and like couples yoga and like mental health. Just freaking amazing. But nonetheless, that's my time. I didn't think I was gonna go that long, but programming notes, hey man, go check out as always. My boy Adrian, I respectfully disagree podcast. Go check him out. Got some funny sports stuff. If you ever want to get into gambling, go look at some of his shorts on YouTube. I think he has a TikTok page too, and it will immediately turn you off of ever wanting to gamble again. Don't worry, he's doing all the losing for y'all. So, but go check my guy out over there, Willie and Fiona. I just listened to an episode from them today, and I'm gonna find out what it is, what the name of it was, because it was actually really good. Come on, Mario. Come on. Come on, Mario. Come on. Was it the aftermath of? No, not that one. I ain't get to that one yet. Not the aftermath of coddling, but beliefs, values, and interests. That was the one I listened to recently, and one of the questions that Fiona asked on there that I thought was really interesting. I was going to ask Jessica when I catch her on like a non-stressful day and just ask her, and it was like, of these three things. Now I could be wrong. Fiona, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like, which of these three things, or it was like rank these three things in the order of priority or the order of importance to you, and it was like having a connection uh, with the same belief, or a connection with the same values, or a connection with the same interest, something like that. Now I gotta go back and listen to it because I hope I ain't screwed it up. But yeah, just a real interesting dialogue they had back and forth about that. A good again, Fiona. Good luck on the report cards. You know, she said that's not a fun time. Babe, when y'all start doing report cards, did it suck? She don't look too thrilled about it. But good luck, man. I hope the parents don't cuss you out or trip out on you. My boy Willie just got his just did his CPR certification too, man. So congrats. As a first responder, like I told you, like, hey man, like always be prepared to use that stuff because you never know when you got to use it. Um, but yeah, that is it, man. I will say, send a prayer for me, man. Big week for me. Like I might have some pretty interesting news that I have to keep to myself, unfortunately. But I hate people to do this. I really hate people to do this. They be like, pray for me, and then they'll tell you why. But no, man, just some stuff in my career, my military career, and just kind of looking at what could possibly happen over the next year or so with promotion. So there's a big conversation that's going to take place this week. So um, just really praying for like blessings and good news, or whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen, and I'm okay with it because I understand when it's my turn and when it's not my turn. Sometimes I just wish I knew. I wish I knew when it was my turn, but nonetheless, man. Um, Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being patient. Like I said, man, we slowly kind of getting our followers up on YouTube, man. So definitely like, follow, subscribe over there. You can follow us here on Good Pods, here on YouTube, here on Facebook, and there on Instagram. So make sure you give us a like, follow, subscribe there. Also, iTunes, Spotify, everywhere you listen to an audio podcast, you can find us there too. And do I got anything else, man? You got anything coming up? No, she doesn't have anything coming up. Man, I pray for Jess, man. She kind of been like not herself lately too, man. So praying for her, man. I gotta love her up a little bit, man. And we do our little date night thing, which I'm not gonna lie, full disclosure, like moment of transparency. I did that whole podcast on freaking Never Stop Dating Your Spouse, and I brought all these resources and totally didn't do none of them the week I was supposed to do it. So, but nonetheless, full disclosure, I'm gonna be better at that. I'm gonna be a better husband this week. I'm gonna try very hard to. But in the meantime, between time, I love y'all. Keep making memories, man. Shout out to the Harbors, man. I love how y'all do things with y'all family, man. I wish we had more time so we could do stuff like that too. But keep making the memories, man. Definitely never stop dating a spouse. Man, just enjoy life, man. It's way too short, man. Like this lady was telling me the other day, man, people dropping like flies, like out of nowhere. So make sure you enjoy life. Enjoy every moment that life gives you. And y'all continue to be blessed, man. In the meantime, between time, Mario is out.